episode of Power Move Makers. This series was created with a simple goal in mind: to bring to the table high-level executives, successful entrepreneurs, and just all-around inspiring human beings. Not just focusing on their success, but more important, shining a spotlight on the road they traveled to get there. Now, this week's guest, I have the pleasure of calling him a dear friend, somebody who has been a constant in my life over the last 20 plus years. He is the man behind the man. He is somebody that you might not know his name, but you are all too familiar with the businesses and the people he's been behind and just built up from scratch. I like to have these types of conversations because he is a brand architect. He is someone who understands the art of deal making, but more important, the art of relationships. Please welcome to this week's Power Move Maker series, Mr. Phil Robinson. Philly Rob, what up?
Yo, what up, Prez? How you, man?
I'm good. Yo, Phil, I'm going to tell you something. When I started this series, I never thought I'd have you on the show. I mean, you are the man behind the man. And I was surprised when you actually said, yes, I'll do an interview. Like, I'm so used to you being in the background and you being that puppet master. So I got to thank you just for agreeing to this interview. I know it's rare. It's something that you don't normally do. So again, welcome to the series. And I know you're going to kill it. You're going to really educate and just empower our community. So thanks a lot for being here.
Man, thank you, Shawn, for having me. And as you said, I normally don't do interviews because I'm not only the man behind the man, but I like to be the quiet man behind the man. I have always had the goal that as the Lord started blessing me with success, my desire in a joking way is to be the richest man nobody knows.
Ain't nothing wrong with that, Phil. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, you have had an enormous amount of success in your life. You've had incredible experiences, incredible adventures, but you started from humble beginnings. So I like to take it back, and I do this for a reason. Our audiences are, my audience, it's made up of success seekers, people who want to go to the next level in their career, want to build businesses, want to build empires. You're an empire builder. But the good thing about you is it started off at humble beginnings. You weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth. So can you take me back to the beginning? You know, where were you born and raised? Tell me a little bit about your parents and your upbringing, if you don't mind.
Well, unfortunately, both of my parents are deceased from an early age. And I was raised anyhow by my grandmother. So those parents were kind of in and out of my life in visits and things like that. So, but I had a stable, good upbringing by my grandmother, who always had a saying to lend to you. Got her guns, baby, got her guns. So even though I kept a toe into what was happening around me, I was at church 7 days a week, from 3 times on Sunday, Bible study, whatever it is. So I had a strong and solid upbringing from my grandmother. And all of my cousins, this is a funny story, all of my cousins could preach, sing, or play an instrument. And I used to be like the little kid, like, yo, I can't play drums. I love the drums. I was never a good speaker, but I learned that I was a good teacher because I could read something and then tell you like what it meant or whatever the case may be. And my grandmother, always being one trying to find the positive in raising me, would be like, well, honey, your job is just to serve them, help your cousins out, like, make a way for them to move the equipment or, get the money, collect the offering or whatever in church terms. But not knowing then that she was preparing me for the gift that God would give me. And that's what a manager is. Service to the client, making sure everything is done right. And also, it taught me that when I got to the level to work with a puff, that I didn't have to be able to sing. I didn't have to be able to play an instrument. Or as he would say, don't worry if I write rhymes, I write checks. And so in those days, I could look back on that upbringing, that it was just service to the people who had the gift. And then able to find something outside of that. So I had a cousin that was, when I was young, he was a great choir director. And so I would be like, yo, we should, talk to the Tri-City Mass Choir or something, always trying to get him, outside of the church that we got when I was in my early teens. But it was preparing me for the success that God was going to give me. And, I never realized it until about 10 years ago. And it was like, wow, God knew what he was doing back then in the preparation phase. But it was very important to be continually faithful, that I would be able to succeed. I would be able to change my life. But all of us, me, you, basketball players, artists, whatever you are, especially young Black men and brown men too, your whole life is not just about your success. It's about going back and take care of mom, grandmom. Like my whole goal was about building my grandmother a new house, something she, or getting her to fly apartment, whatever it was, that I could finally say, yo, look what I did for you. And that's when you work your hardest, when you're trying to reach a goal that you not only set for yourself, but you set for other people around you, those that you love. So that was very important in my upbringing. And ironically, 3 days ago, I got a telephone call and I didn't recognize the number. And most times I won't even answer those calls, or I let them go to voicemail. And if you really want to talk to me, you'll leave a message and I can identify who it is, and then I can return the call. If not, you don't want me to know who it is. And so there's no need for me to return the call. But I called the number back, and as soon as the person started talking, yo, what's up? I was like, oh, what's up, Biv? I automatically knew it was Michael Bivens.
Yeah.
This is 3 days ago. And I was like, hey, how you doing, man? Whatever. And he just began to yo, what are you doing? This, that, and the third. And then I was like, what made you just call me? He's like, did you send me an email by accident like a week or two ago? And I was like, nah, I didn't send you that. And then he read me the email, and it was so weird. But yet, I don't believe that God makes mistakes, or, things are by happenstance. But it was an email from somebody at the NBA to one of my business partners, who also used the beginning of the email as Mike B. Not Mike B, the stylist that we know, but my business partner in another business. And the NBA lady, I don't know how, but sent it to the Mike B I was in business with. But when I replied, I hit Bivens. I'm sure that was what happened. And so he was like, yo, I'm amazed at every time I speak to you, you're somewhere else doing something bigger or better. And the reason that is pertinent is I was spending my young teens with Dougie Fresh in Harlem. And Dougie Fresh was like, yo, man, I got these kids coming down, or, they from Boston, and, they want to get on to Doug at the time, used to have your Bali's on, that line in one of his raps. And the kids wanted to get Bali's. So they needed to go to a store on 125th Street. And basically, when they got there, Doug wasn't around, and I had to take them to AJ Lester up on 125th Street. And at that time, AJ carried all the colors like mustard, brown, green. And the only people who were rocking them were Doug, Kool Moe Dee, and damn, he would kill me. Damn. Anyways, it's killing me that I can't remember the name right now, but we'll come back to it. But anyways, it ended up being New Edition. And they wanted a color of Bali to match every one of the suit changes that they would have during the tour. And we became so cool, me and Biv, that when he came to Washington, D.C., where an aunt of mine lived, I was backstage at the Capitol Center. And that night, Biv was like, yo, you always making sure we fly. You really taught me about Harlem. Like, you want to go to California? That, and I was like, I'm backstage at a concert. Like, what do you mean? Yo, go get a bag, meet me at the hotel, this hotel, and we gonna go on tour. Literally, you're
telling me it was that simple.
I'm telling you that over a couple of months of, telephone conversations and like finding clothes for them and doing little things, hustle moves for them. And Doug giving me that platform that within 4 months at the most, when they played DC. So I had already come from New York, then they played Philly, then they played Virginia, and then came back to DC. Something like that. And so when he was like, yeah, like you can be my assistant, I went home and got a duffel bag and I never looked back.
Hey, Phil, can we stop there for 1 second? Because we're getting deep into your story and I want to go backwards.
At the beginning.
To all my movers, if you love educational and inspirational content just like this, please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. But most important, if you know anybody making power moves just like you, share it. Now back to the video. So I get your upbringing. Your grandmother brings you up. Where are you living? What state?
At that time, I was really like bouncing around. So I lived with my grandmother, but I'd go stay with a cousin or go stay with a uncle or wherever. Like because like I said, my parents had died at a young age. I was able to bounce around and be in different areas all the time. Like wherever there was something going on that I could tie myself in at a young age, that's where I would be at.
Okay. And I'm going to bring this thing up for a second, but I just want to get some things out the way. Any brothers or sisters, biological?
My parents had other children, but I didn't have a relationship with them. I was like my grandmother's only child. Okay.
Phil, you just brought us through several periods of your life. You are born and raised in the church. Your grandmother raises you. She obviously had the biggest influence on you as a child.
Right.
How does Phil get to New York and even get in any type of relationship with a Dougie Fresh? Dougie Fresh, at one point out, he's the hottest thing going. He is Mr. Harlem. How does that relationship get established? And I really want to establish because it goes to what I know about you. Your ability to get into rooms, your ability to get people to know your name and establish real relationships with people. It's uncanny.
So by that time, I was living with an aunt in Washington, D.C. for a while. And so Doug was coming to D.C. like in the beginning of Lottie Dottie and doing those like one-off shows, coming in a van. And he was being driven by a guy that I became cool with named Romero, who's now Jay-Z's driver and in charge of Jay's fleet. But at those days, he had a little van company that would, bring Dougie Fresh, bring Kool Moe Dee, different people to these local concerts. And I met Doug at one of the concerts, and he was like, yo, like, we gonna go back to, Harlem. You want to go stay with, your relatives there. And so then that was my kind of introduction to like really becoming an adopted son of Harlem and a Harlemite, so to speak. But again, Doug was still living in his an apartment that he had built in his mother's brownstone. So we were sort of coming up together. It was the first time I met Puff, and I didn't even like know him at that time. He was a dancer for Doug. So it was like the relationships kind of bounced and touched, but they were seeds being planted for later on in life. Because I didn't see Puff again till years later when we both were at in Washington, D.C. at Howard University, when he really like first talked to me about business. Like, yo, homeboy, you got all the relationship with them dudes, I could make us some money with this, and we could throw parties. And, it was a relationship where, again, I'm just being cool, but he identified the service in me, or the dot connecting, so to speak, in me. What I try to do, Prez, in every step of my life since my grandmother, was always like, remember the dots, remember the point about somebody, whatever their specialty was. Here, me and you are 25 years later, and I still go back to like, yo, he was the creator of the Bad Boy Street Team. He is this, he is that. And then I relate it to how it could be a political campaign, how it can be a major artist, a major athlete. I can now take the dots that I've picked up from you over the years and put them together as a puzzle, and then explain that to the new person that we're doing.
So is this something that for you, is it a natural gift, or is it something that you were intentional about early in your career, early in your life, to be more specific?
No, again, being like the only child growing up with my grandmother, she taught me everything without, it wasn't her goal, but she didn't want me to be ever at the mercy of anybody else if something happened to her. Taught me how to sew, taught me how to, go pick chicken out at a market, and make sure it don't have feathers in it, or go, this is how you tell if a fish is good. If the head is rotten, everything's rotten. One of those things that I had to begin to remember those things as she got older, remembering phone numbers, remembering friends. So then when I would start as what I didn't even know was a business, I would develop the idea of being able to have not as good as people with photographic memory, but, how this could plug into that, sort of a kind of memory that really served me well as God began to put the pieces of my puzzle together. And yeah, I have a saying, for instance, one of Puff's most successful ventures is Ciroc. You, having grown up with me at Bad Boy, know a lot of things come in and out of his atmosphere. So people will tell you, I brought Ciroc to him, and I did this and I did that. You have lawyers, you have hanger-ons, you have everybody that did something with Ciroc. So, I'm cool to be quiet, because the most important thing is I know where the seed is buried of Ciroc. And you do too, because we initially got a relationship with Diageo from Crown Royal when we had Bad Boys of Comedy. So right. None of those people that really claim all of this stuff from the success of Ciroc were there when we did the Crown Royal campaign, and we put Mr. C in the purple bag with the white strings that Randy Bazzelli made from us from being a tour promoter. And that when we gave the gifts away to the people that won, it was we crowned them instead of them winning. Crown Royal. Dougie Fresh, who me and Puff both had early relationships with, was our MC. So we would have Doug crown them. They don't know all of those seeds that were buried, and then we were watering them with different things that ultimately led to Diageo saying, yo, we want to be your partner, come up here. So you have to be careful to always know when a seed is placed in your lap, and how you're going to water it, how you're going to put, nourishment around them. I heard Steve Harvey say one time, you can get a seed and put dirt on it and nothing ain't going to happen because you just constantly not taking care of it and throwing bad at it. Or you can get soil that has nutrients and put it on that seed. And that is good, reputation. That is good follow through. That is good taking care of that seed and that blessing, so that as it turns into the tree of Sirach, you've got roots in that thing. So as I go, again, these are things that I just learn and kind of put them together when they're necessary so that I can have the outcome that we're pursuing.
Okay. I want to go backwards again for a second. You came up.
I don't want to go back too much, though. We've been turned into a pillar of salt.
No, because I want to establish something in this story.
Yeah, I got a real policy about don't look back and pick up that luggage.
Wonderful. You brought up, obviously, a woman of faith raised you.
Yes.
I know you had a stint in the streets.
Yes.
And what I find so fascinating and remarkable about your story is you've done so much in the C-suites, but you also have a real backstory in the streets. So number one, how does a young man who was raised by a grandmother who poured nothing but the Lord into you get into the streets? And ultimately, where does that land you?
Everything that I'm saying now about the blessings also apply to the streets, right? So in the streets, I kept the good that my grandmother brought into me, but that same spirit I had to the street guys. So, for instance, I've always in some form worked in entertainment. So my initial entree to the streets was like selling front row seats and backstage passes and things to the dudes who in the street. So there you meet other celebrities. There you meet the athlete of that community or the high roller of that community. And you begin to get those relationships from a good point. You're not necessarily doing street work, as they say. Or putting in work when I was growing up. But I began to see that I was building a strong relationship or Rolodex in the street. So, guy in DC had a good time with his wife, and that he'll hit me and be like, yo, my man in Richmond wanted to buy them tickets. My man in Ohio wanted to buy them tickets. So now I know all the street guys from, again, New York to California, from, a relationship that was strong, but good, because I didn't have to hustle or do the things that they did, but I took care of them. I serviced them, made sure they had a good time. If you bought tickets from me, I'm checking on you. I'm making sure you're good. I make sure you get to meet somebody if that's what you want, those type of things. So I build those relationships. But now remember, I had established a relationship in New York with Doug from the beginning. So automatically, my friends from Haiti and different places we had a brotherhood bond, even though other people were fearful of them or had a negativity. They were like, brothers to me. So I could bring them into the place, and then somebody would be like, yo, how Jack get in here? And I'm like, it's my brother, my cousin, we good, don't worry about it. We have that relationship. He's here with me, and we, came to have a good time. No problems. But if you want to make one, there could be one. So I was able to always work both sides of the fence like that. But as people in the streets took more trust, they gave me more responsibility and a greater access to the streets. And unfortunately, while I was trying to play both roles, I got caught up in a RICO conspiracy. And you know how Ricos work. Everybody's in trouble. If two people are commit or know of a crime without calling the police or telling on anybody or whatever the case may be, you're guilty. So that led me to have a stronger bond with them because I'm going to just go do my time and come home because I benefited greatly from like, you know, where else was I going to make that kind of money? You know, sometimes 30, 40 grand a week, you know, just from having relationships and a great mind and ability on how to make things work.
How much time did you ultimately?
A nice way to put it.
How much time did you ultimately receive?
5 years.
Okay, so you did the straight 5 years?
Well, you know, you get good time off, and I participated in a federal systems drug program that cut off 11 months out of my time as well.
Okay. So you come back home, you hit the streets, didn't tell on anybody, Phil's name is good. Obviously, that makes you even more impressive and reliable to people in the streets. People can trust you. They know Phil Robinson, my information is good with him. He went, he did his time. You come back home.
Though, I want to put a point in because you said like you go do your time, you came home, and your name is good. No matter what you do, and because your show is about making power moves and hustling, it's important that people always remember, Prez, no matter what you do, there's going to be 10% of the people who just don't like you, who got something to say, who bring up something negative that they don't even know what they're talking about, because we live in a world now of instant, you know, success or media or whatever, and so you're never gonna always be, your name is good, but if you can keep it 80% good, you good. That's very important because people give up when they hear, like, you know, they make they hit a speed bump, and then they on the other side of the bump they hit negativity. They kind of go into a hold or hide. Whereas at those times when I hit a bump and I went away, when I came home, I didn't immediately seek to reestablish the relationship with the streets. I went back to what brought the streets to me, and that was my ability to work in entertainment, to do the skill that I know. So one of the things is that I never talk about, but it's important that I put it in perspective because I don't want people to think that it's just that simple or easy. But in prison is just like a society that's just like outside. So there was a guy that worked in the library, and I bartered with him on a regular basis so that he would collect all of the articles about Magic Johnson, a guy named T.D. Jakes, and another guy named Deion Sanders that was Jakes's like son in the ministry at that time. So by the time I came home, I knew I had a little relationship with Magic Johnson from before going away, and him coming to so many of the Eddie Murphy Raw Tour dates, that when I came home, I wanted to know about everything that he was doing. And within a month or two of being home, the Lord made it a way for me to meet Magic Johnson again.
You know, I wanted to establish that part of your life because there's this Donnie McClurkin song I'm sure you are familiar with. We fall down, but we get up.
Yes.
And for anybody who's watching this in video form, who's listening to this in podcast form on one of the streaming services, it's important for you to listen to Phil's story and understand you can hit rock bottom. You can make mistakes. Your life doesn't always need to go without incident.
Sunshine and flowers. I mean, you're not going to have that every day.
You're not.
You know, or otherwise you're not human. You might as well just go on to heaven. Don't pass, don't stop. Just keep moving. You good. Nobody that we know is that way. Nobody around you has not had bumps that they have not overcome. And nobody in their life has had a bump that doesn't in some way seem to follow you. no matter how successful I am, somebody will always, bring up the fact that I went to prison for something else. I've been told, that I went for, all types of reasons that I'm like, wow, amazed. So people are going to bring up those negativities. And I don't have a lot to say about those days, but I have to reinforce that even though people see or speak or do negativity as you are seeing your rise, it is important that you don't look back, that you don't pick up that luggage. Because guess what? Since that day, Magic Johnson is my man. I've had bumps with him. I've had
stop there, Phil, because you while you were in prison, you mentioned you asked a guy who worked in the library to save articles of 3 people because you needed to keep yourself current on what Magic Johnson was doing. Who were the other 2 that you mentioned? TD Jakes.
And Deion
Sanders. This is, again, it doesn't matter where you're at in your life. You, by all intents and purposes, you're away from the world.
Yeah,
but you found a way to keep yourself abreast. And this goes to one of the things that I admire about you. It's always strategy. It's always intentional. You somehow, even under the worst circumstances, doing time, made it your business. I'm going to continue to learn. I'm going to continue to grow. I'm going to continue to position myself. Even though I'm in this position now, I'm going to position myself so when I get out of here, I can hit the ground running. And I love that because people give themselves too many excuses too often not to continue to move forward, even if they can't move forward in the way that they think that they should. So that's great. You come out, you get released.
But I want to make a point on that, though.
Go ahead.
Because while, though, I was doing that, I kept the goal of, although now she had now passed away, I wanted to make my grandmother proud. Like, I'm going to, I made a mistake. You're still looking down on me, and I want to make you proud just as much as I disappointed you by being here.
Gotcha.
So you got to keep.
And that's so admirable.
Yeah, you got to keep the good in it, because the other thing is, like, regardless if you're doing 30 days or 30 years, your mind can't be in the streets if you're in the walls. It's a saying that they have in prison. If you're worrying about what the girl is doing, your buddies is doing, and all that stuff on the street, your time is going to be harder because you're not paying attention to what's going on in the walls, whether that's the walls of the prison or the walls of the mind that you have built up.
Absolutely. Phil, you said that you followed Magic's career while you were on the inside. Then you said God blessed you to connect with him. How does that happen?
I'm going to definitely leave it at that, because, Prez, I've told you many times, I could be like extremely rich on a book, on movie deals, on television that I've been offered after I was successful. But Magic Johnson is still alive, well, and doing well with me. So I don't want to speak on anything about his life, but the goodness that we have been able to partake together.
Okay. You and Magic, I know you have had a long-standing career with Magic Johnson over the years. Do you go from working with Magic Johnson directly to working with Puff? Or do you have another client somewhere in the middle of that?
I go directly. Again, another blessed but crazy story is that me and Magic were having a disagreement at that time, and I went and had a meeting at an agency that at the time felt like too many of these new management companies were popping up and taking their business away. By, like, now the management company has a booking department, has things that agents did. So I was meeting with them about starting a management arm of an agency. And Puff was coming from a meeting with the chairman of the agency. And we met again that day, having had the relationship of Howard, Dougie Fresh, and all of those types of things, and the success that I was having with Magic. And we had a conversation right then and on the cusp. And again, the Lord blessed, because it couldn't happen no other way. And 2 days later, I was Puff's manager.
Are you serious?
Dead ass. He was moving to LA, and at the time, Magic was the king of LA. So me and Norma were immediately, I mean, we knew each other from the Andre Harrell days and things like that, but we were immediately 2 days later looking for a house for Puff to get in Beverly Hills.
Okay, I once heard Puff mention that you were the best manager he's ever had. And what is it that you think that a manager of people need to bring to the table? Because Puff is, I've worked with Puff for 20 plus years of my life. He's different. He's A-list. He's demanding. He's all of the things that you would expect someone of his caliber to be. But you not only kept up with him, you were able to bring deals to the table, and I watched him trust you. And Puff doesn't trust a lot of people. He would literally be in meetings, do what Puff does, hand it to my manager, Phil. He can take it from here. And he had the confidence that you could bring it home. Can you give me some traits that anybody who is not just a manager of talent, but a manager of people, if they work at a regular corporation and they're heading a team, what are some great traits that they need to have to win the confidence of their superiors?
Well, what comes to mind now are two things. So I'm sure many people have now saw The Black Godfather, Clarence Avant. And I met him also early on with my Magic job, and with one of my other bosses to be after Puff, L.A. Reid. And I was with Clarence one time, and I remember him saying, like, you go into the room or as Mr. Robinson or, LA's guy, but you leave the room as Phil. Very important. I don't care who takes you into a room, make sure that by the time you leave the room, you've established some relationship with somebody important in that room to remember you by, in a good way, to glean something out of, not just glean something out of the meeting, but make sure they know who you are by the time you leave. So I apply that a lot. But also with Puff, what we built up was, like you said, trust. Growing up as the church kid that my grandmother raised, I just never had the taste for drinking. I didn't smoke or do drugs or any of that type of stuff. And by now, I was having more success than I could have ever imagined. So I had no reason to take anything. Me and Puff had definitely a give and take relationship. And I believe to this day, if he needed me, he knows that I would be there. And he used to tell me all the time, like, if something happened to me, like he said it on national TV one day, this is the guy I would want to take care of my children. So I always try to keep that relationship with him. But he also, as he began to trust me more and began to enjoy the relationship that I was delivering as a manager, he would, impart things in me. Like, no, do it like this, Playboy, or, or tell me in advance, like he might go in and play bad cop and, I need to play good cop and clean it up. So we built a real trust, and it's important to never deviate from that. Like if you go into something and you faking or you acting or whatever the case may be, at some point you're not going to remember what you were acting and what, really took place, and you're going to get jammed up. So Puff, and he's that type of dude. He's going to test you on a regular basis. So I always tried to be prepared ahead of time for whatever it would be. And then I was talking to Rocio a couple of months ago or whatever, and something had hit me, like, people are always telling you in these like seminars and in these this and that, like, the best and most important thing, man, is know who you are, know what you're gonna do, know this, know that, But it hit me, and I told her, like, what's been one of the most important things that have been part of my success, our success? Know who you're not.
Bingo. I have drilled that message home to my audience again and again and again. So happy you brought that up, but go ahead.
And so in the Puff relationship, I knew who I wasn't. So I made sure to identify and tap people that knew how to be that person that he wanted or that he needed in his life. And I also identified great and strong relationships from the people that were already around him, that you needed to have a team to make it work. It was never always about me. I don't care if I don't get the credit ever. Just spell my name right when you do that wire. And it was always important to me. So in those days, I wouldn't have been able to do it without a Norma, a Tracy, or you, or Derek, like Jamil. All of those people had different roles to make the Puff machine move. Jeff Tweedy. It was me and Norma that realized that, Puff want to touch everything. So rather than us letting him dictate to us what he's going to touch, let's kind of put a Puff Bible together. So if we got 5 people around him, and these are the things you're responsible for, right? So because Puff will ask 3 different people, he'll get me a can of Coke to put on, he puts it on his eye to get when he got a brain freeze or a headache. But he'll ask 3 people. So you got 3 people running around trying to find a cold can of Coke or beverage or whatever for him, where we assign one person. This is what you're in charge of. So if he asks any other 4 for a can of Coke, you tell the person that's responsible, and I know what they're doing. If he asks for something about his kid's school or whatever, this person is responsible for that. So again, everybody reports into this person for that. So we began to organize the system ourselves. And the biggest, most important thing was, with Puff, you had to learn how to create things outside of the norm as far as his time, because Puff is going 72 hours a day before he need a rest. So it had to be, okay, what we're going to do is say, this time is for Jeff Tweedy and Shawn John, where he can, get with Dowie and approve this, or get with, the market and people to go do that. So we would set his time where all of those things came to him, and they had their time to do it, so that his time was better used than driving all over the city, stopping at Shawn John, stopping at this place. We kind of brought it all under 2 rules. Back then it was the bad boy offices and Daddy's house. We tried to coordinate everything between those 2 places. So again, it was recognizing who I was not, because I couldn't be all of those things at one time. But it also gave him the opportunity to identify in me that I was learning from him.
Got you. Phil, even as I am listening to you talk, it brings me back to those days. You were the person who, when I was breaking records, running the national street team, running the promotion department at Bad Boy, you saw something in me. We established a friendship first, and you saw something in me and said, look, I want to bring you on to the management team. And people don't realize that. Actually, this is probably the first time on this show that I've discussed that, but you were the person who said, okay, this guy is great at promotion and marketing. He's doing his thing. He can break records. but he's got something else. Let me bring him onto the management team. And I remember working alongside of you, and then eventually you made me the tour manager, and we spent years and years on the road. But I say this to you, and this is a question I asked James Cruz once before, who came after you and managed Puff. But I asked him, I said, and I know my answer when I asked this question to you. But I asked James, I said, what is something that you can tell this audience about Puff that they can't read in a book? So I asked you the same question. You know Puff for many years, long before he became famous, and after he became the person he became, you were right there guiding his career. You were the architect of putting the deal together with making the band, which really revolutionized reality TV. You were the one who put together so many of those successful tours that I had the opportunity of being the road manager and tour manager of. But for somebody who didn't live during that era, because right now people can just look at Puff as, he's the guy who owns Ciroc. He's a happy-go-lucky guy who changed his name to Love, and he is the father of 6 kids. What is it about Puff that you can tell us that we can't read in a book?
Well, the first thing is, it's really about a team all the time with Puff. So, there are things that all of us get credit for, but there are people who may not get the credit that participated. And Puff is a kind, really good guy on the inside. But if you can't be loyal enough long enough to see that, then there's no room for you in, his atmosphere. I have a saying that, your talent will make room for you. Everything that you just described about the successes of making the band or, Sean John or Unforgivable, all of those things had another very good friend of mine involved named Kenny Masilas, who was the lawyer. And I, knew that he was the lawyer and that he's in charge of that. I'm not the person that knows legalese or, whatever that's supposed to be. We brought a TV manager in for making the band and those MTV deals. That I learned from as we built the business and then created Bad Boy Productions or Entertainment. But Puff was like, I got to have a TV manager. And I had to also have the mindset and the heart to know that I needed that because I'm not that. And those things made our relationship work because I hustled enough to be around the atmosphere, but also could stay long enough until he saw unbelievable need and me being a part of the team and really how good he is. He wants everybody around him to win. And people don't, tell that part of the story in books and documentaries and those types of things that they have going on. They just tell you the good parts, but they don't tell you the part that, we had other team members that came in and out of his system that were very important. And he really became nicer to me and not even because he never was mean to me, but, he became closer to me because he knew that I could understand when he felt like we needed other people on the team for us to have better success. And by the way, it didn't change my success in any way. I'm getting the same check I'm getting, even if I upgrade Shawn, even if Kenny Masilas gets the legal fees, even if the TV guy gets his percentage. It didn't change what my relationship and my worth were going to be in the circle. And Puff has to identify that in you.
Got you.
He has to see that you're necessary, man. If not, come on, just in the time that we've known each other in over 20 years, he might have had 1,000 assistants.
That's right.
The turnover is great. But if there's a need, Farnsworth Bentley, a lot of people remember him from television shows and things like that. But now he's successful in his own right and with his own career with movie, television, or whatever, things that he
Working
does
hand in hand with Kanye West.
hand to hand with Kanye, even right now on Sunday service. And
Yep.
so, just as much as Puff is proud of those people for succeeding, I am too. You are too. And because we identify that in people, we're having this conversation, and somebody listening to it that might have knew us 20 years ago, and they're saying like, "Yo, I remember that," but they're not a part of it. And
Absolutely.
and they have to remember that they can change that circumstance, though.
So I want to segue a bit. I know you have since left working with Puff, and you've done some incredible things. Are there any deals? Because I look at you, and I think that you can give a master's class on relationships. I think you can give a master's class on connecting the dots, being able to identify the opportunities. These are things that, for somebody like myself, when I look at you, I'm like, this guy's just gifted in these areas. Are there any deals that you have architected or helped to put together or connected the dots that stand out for you? Because we've talked about several in this interview already. But these are just things I know of. Are there any for you that you sit back and look over the course of your career and just say, I'm so happy to have been a dot connector or somebody who really helped to get this deal done?
You know what, Shawn? This is going to seem, I don't want it to seem egotistical or anything like that, but all things that I have participated in, big and small, continue to give me joy because I'm able to look back even now, and as I try to work on things, to take a piece from something else we might have did before or something that we're doing now. But I think the thing I'm most proud of is maintaining relationship up and down. So I'm no different, like we talked about earlier, than anybody else in having a bumps in the road. But it's the hardest to be able to maintain relationships when you're low, right? So, but most of the time is because of you. You hit a bump and you fall lower than you were. That's what happens with a bump. It goes up and you go down. And you get to the point where you don't want to do what you normally did, or you don't want to have the hustle, or you may be embarrassed or afraid. Acknowledge it, deal with it, and move forward with the situation that is important. So, the thing that I'm most happy about is still having a relationship with you, still having a relationship with Magic Johnson, still having a relationship with Ron Burkle, still having a relationship with Puff, still having a relationship with people that I only manage for 2 or 3 months because we may not have the same relationship. I was literally driving down the street today, and a song, one of Biggie's songs came on that featured the Junior Mafia. And I remember that, I managed Little Kim for 6 months, but even though like we didn't have the massive success that I had with a Puff or I had with, different artists, it was important to me that I still was a part of seeing Little Kim in a different way. Like what I saw in Kim wasn't just the music. Right to this day, it was impressive to me that she maintained a relationship through her own hardships with Donatella Versace, with those people in fashion. Marc Jacobs, for instance, like when she was in prison, Marc Jacobs, she showed me letters that he wrote her, and so I always, when I tried to work with her to manage her, it was about getting her outside of even always worrying about new music and what people thought. You have something that has made this fashion industry pay attention to you. If we can figure that out, you're back on your road. I'm working with another client that right now that I can't disclose, but you know, that person had a bump. And you know, it's easy for me because I've had many bumps and come out of it. Drop me one, babe. And I'm able to really honestly be able to say, you can get over this. You're going to be cool, because I've done it with several clients. I've done it several times in my life. And the gifts that come out of stuff are way bigger than what you get from waddling in it. So it's more important to me that I still can pick up the phone and call those people that I even had bumps with, because you don't never know what you got to plug in the next deal. You don't know what dot you got to connect, and your relationships are that glue. So I know without a shadow of a doubt, man, that God has gifted me with a platinum Rolodex.
Yes, he has. Yes, he has.
And like I said, if you hit a bump, you know, today, as I sit here talking to you, man, in a beautiful, you know, sunlit California kitchen, it is still some bumps that I'm thinking about, like, yo, how, you know, can I fix that one or make that one better? Because I don't want to leave here. You're not going to make everybody happy, but I don't want to leave here not identifying any varnishes in that platinum Rolodex that I can't polish off. You got to keep on. You got to, no matter how bad you think it is, you got to keep on.
No, you really do. You know, it doesn't matter. And this is something that I hope our audience pay attention to. You keep stressing that point of you got to keep on. It doesn't matter what yesterday brought you. It really doesn't. Yesterday is yesterday. And every day that you wake up, you have to look at it as God has blessed me with a blank slate.
Another day.
It's clean. What I make of today becomes my new reality for tomorrow. And if people can,
you better talk that talk, brother. That is one of the realest things that I've heard in a while. In a while, every day is an opportunity for you to make tomorrow's history. And it's funny that you're saying that, right? Because 20 years ago, no, longer than that, 30 years ago, Leor Cohen used to always pour into us like, yo, tomorrow you can write your last chapter. You know, like, you know, don't let this be your last chapter. Tomorrow you can write it. You know, like his teaching to us was like, yo, we got to get up tomorrow and do it. You know, we got to get up tomorrow and make it happen. And, you know, he continues, you know, himself to do it, to reinvent himself from Def Jam to Warner to his, you know, 300 Entertainment to, you know,
now being over at YouTube.
Yeah. You know, and those of us who learned under the Def Jam days, we may have been successful. And this is an important point, because we have mentioned the word success a lot of times. And when I talk about how good God has been to us, Prez, me and you, not only have I accomplished my dreams and my goals, God showed me and you that he given us things that we didn't even know to dream of. Them first days on Manhattan Avenue and 121st with Dougie Fresh, 124th, I'm sorry, with Dougie Fresh. Nigga, I had never even heard of Miami. Never mind going to the south of France 10 or 12 times. Never mind partying in Ibiza and all of those things that we were blessed to be able to do. And people forget this part because of the relationship with Puff or LA or Magic or whoever that you worked your way up to get. We've done things that we didn't know to dream of doing. And I'm still happy with spending 2 weeks in Miami as my vacation. I don't have to never go to another country again, because he's filled my cup that full with blessings and being able to show you that if you trust in me, I will give you everything. And he's taught me some lessons sometimes that, it ain't the girl that's next to me. It ain't the person or the client that I'm working for. It's me, Phil. And you'll have that no matter where you go. And I've continued to have it, although I and continue to be grateful to those who have given me the opportunity, the LA Reeves, the Steve Bartles. Like, I worked at Def Jam, and Steve Bartles was like the president in LA, was the CEO or something like that. But my relationship with Bartles goes back to when you say you were the tour manager. I didn't even know to go do radio shows until Steve Bartles saw something in me and said, hey, Phil, you got Puff. He's the hottest thing on the radio right now. And, there's radio stations that will have him for Summer Jam if you want me to, help you with that. Absolutely. Ain't changing nothing I'm doing. So it wasn't just about him being my boss at Def Jam. I have 10 years of history prior to Def Jam with him just showing me how to take advantage of another opportunity. So when I got to Def Jam, he knew I would be solid. You gotta look, those are things, man, gems that I even, you don't think of every day. So if I wasn't having this conversation with you, I wouldn't remember how much I love Steve and Sackheim and, those guys who gave us opportunities to see the growth.
Absolutely. Phil, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you, and you speak of the blessings. You have recently been blessed yourself. I hear in the background, you entered another chapter in your life. Can you talk to me about fatherhood and what a blessing it has been, and how has it changed you? How has it changed you personally and also as a businessman?
The funny part is that I thought for 50 years, 50, that I didn't want children. I thought, because that's what I would say. And again, I'm talking about my blessings, and it's important to know that it really is true when they say, make a plan and God laughs, because that's what I was thinking for 50 years. But he knew he had this little angel gem stored for me at 51 before I did. He knew it for the whole 50 years. And then not only to have a child, but have it with the woman that I truly love and believe loves me, and her to be such a special gift. I don't go anywhere and any race of people or denomination or whatever, constantly like, yo, that is a blessing. She's so, intuitive. She's so cognitive. I mean, they use such big words. And, it's amazing for me to see, hi, this little angel who just woke up from her nap.
Hey, little Sophie.
Show him your shirt, so.
Hey, little Sophie.
And she will always be a New Yorker. Her shirt says, show him, New York.
New York.
But she's such a blessing, but also the reason why life has changed and you're different. So now you're living for this person and this soul. And look, you can't get no genuine love like that, man. Hi, Sophie. Every day she wakes up being excited and cognitive that she wants to spend time with mommy and daddy, or that, if somebody comes up on her that's a stranger, it's like, this is my daddy, like, you're going to protect me, you're going to keep me. And she's only 2. So it has been an amazing 2 years of my life to see that I'm living for somebody else. My job every day is, and people, Prez, how it is. They think that, you're so successful and you're what? No. Now I got to fill that cup up again. I keep telling people I'm just topping off the bag for her. I'm good. If the Lord allows my life not to change one iota right now, I will be good. But that doesn't mean that she will be. So I have to make sure she's good when I'm gone, because anybody that's probably listening to us right now, that is part of your normal audience, didn't start off with something.
Correct.
We all started off with zero. And I want to change that in my daughter's life and in the generation. Shawn, you know, like when I first started talking to you about management, I had a dream that is close to, is at 60% of being fulfilled. And I was like, you know, I want to be able to find 10 guys that I can impart what I know in them, that they can become millionaires. And if something ever happens to me, I can get 100,000 from each one of y'all, and I'm back at $1 million, and you still got $1 million. You know, or 900,000. That's close enough to $1 million. And you know, I have that in a you. I have that in a Mike. I have that in a Mo. I have that in a Jason. You know, like I got dudes, man, that's VP at Google, that you know, CMOs at major companies where they were interns, and I influenced their lives the way that Puff influenced me, because I'm passing it on. But tomorrow, if I called, you know, at least 5 guys, I can get 100,000. That's what's important. That's how my life has changed. Is now I'm trying to do things for her, but continue to, you know, look for the other 5 as I nourish the 5 I got, 6 I got rather. But the point is that it changes your life. It's an unconditional love. It's like God, at least for their first, I don't know how it happens after 3 and 4, but at least for these first 3 or 4, it's like him constantly showing me, I told you I'll be with you always. I'm just here in the form of this little child right now. And prior to that, sometimes, you know this, because we have shared pets, that sometimes he could speak to you through the pet. Like, you know, like you're like, wow. Like, not that he says anything, but something happened in that pet either jumps away or comes to your feet or comes to your, like, cuddle you, and you know that God is telling you, like, okay, that was the right thing to do, Shawn, you know, or that was the right thing to do, Phil. And that I'm never going to give. If you don't stop your relationship with God, and I no apologies to any atheists or people who don't believe in him, because he is the beginning of Christianity, Judaism, Muslims, Islam, whatever. All of us believe in God. You may have a different messenger, but do not lose your connection from God. Do not, and when I don't, even in the days that I'm having bumps or I'm in between, I don't think that I maybe had a year or 2, you know, without actually doing some you know, particular work with somebody, but I was still with him. So I was good. You know, it's one of those things that if you have to rely on somebody for your happiness, for your, you know, belief in success or whatever that is, then you're in the wrong situation.
I love that. Before we close this thing out, Phil, you know, 2 points I want to make. One is you spoke about Sophie, and it really comes down to next.
And by the way, that's my grandmother's that raised me's name, was Sophie, the old school, Sophie.
Got you. I didn't realize that. But yeah, it comes down to next generation. And that is exactly why I do what I do. That's what this part of my life is about. I did not have access growing up in the streets of the South Bronx. I didn't have people who I could get on the phone or sit and have conversations like this and them just really pour into me because they've lived it. They've done extraordinary things. And the reason I started the Power Move Makers series was because there's somebody right now in the South Bronx, in middle America, or in Harlem, just any impoverished place that you can think of around the world that might not have direct access to a Phil Robinson. But through this vehicle, I'm able to pour into the next generation, having deep, in-depth conversations with people like yourself who are experienced and have wisdom. So I love that you speak of the next generation. And
But I want to say something.
Go ahead.
Before that, it's important to speak of the next generation and remember that we were the next generation to others. Like, I'm never going to forget, like, the love, man, that in the last 10 years before he passed, that Andre Harrell put in me. I mean, like, we talked every like 2 or 3 days on, like, do this, do that. Like, Andre helped me with something amazing. Unfortunately, I can't speak about it, but he changed the position of, we participated in changing the position of a lot of Black Americans 2 years ago. You're familiar. But just those amazing things that you're not going to ever get, public credit for. He, orchestrated that thing from the beginning. Like, Phil, when you go in, do this, do that. We're going to, old mob type, things of like secrecy is the most important thing. Like, and, do it by yourself, this particular thing. All of that stuff is great, but I'm working with a client now that I'm so excited about what the future holds for this person with music and all around entertainment. But our real bond, even though I knew the person for 20 years, was Andre Harrell always telling me, like, yo, homie is like one of us. He's beloved. He's believed in. He's one of my favorite cats. And so when me and the guy were able to sit down and break bread, we had Andre Harrell sitting there at the table, basically still encouraging us with that. Like, yo, but don't get too, I'm trying to think of the right word. He wouldn't have said this, but I'll say it nicely for him. Don't get too commercial, keep it ghetto fabulous. And so those things I now try to, give back. Or he would like, yo, Phil, I forgot, man, I'm supposed to have lunch or this time or whatever with Clarence Avon. I ain't gonna be able to make that meeting. I'm like, yo, Andre, we changing the world. He's like, yo, but I wouldn't be able to do it if it wasn't for him. So I got to go have that. So he also identified with the, generation that instilled it in him. And, he told me that if it wasn't for Clarence Avon, he wouldn't have had Motown. So it was things that you really could grasp. And now it's easier to give them back because that Andre gave them to you. Don't take nothing from somebody if you're not willing to share it.
Absolutely. Phil, you are, through this interview, you are very forthcoming, whether intentional or unintentional.
Very unintentional. My wife is over there like shaking her head like, I can't even believe.
You don't even know where I'm about to go. And tell Rocio I said hello. Hey, Rocio. And tell her I said it with the C, not the Z.
The C, Rocio.
But you're very much front and center with your spirituality, with your relationship with God, with your connection with something that is greater than yourself. And I love that. I think it's so admirable, but I don't think enough people give credit to where credit is due. Yes, you're a hard worker. Yes, you have gifts that you have been able to bring to the world. But like I know, you can work as hard as you want, but if the man upstairs is not blessing you and you are not working in line with what he will have you do, nothing comes to fruition. So I love the fact that, is this something that for you, you're intentional about? Is this something for you that for you, like, look, I've gained success, but I need anybody who hears my message to understand that it wasn't just me. Like, what is your motivation behind always mentioning your relationship with God?
It's very important that I even clarify a little piece that you just said. You said that it's very important that the man upstairs ain't blessing you, but he's not ever in a position not to be blessing you. What's happening is if you are blocking your blessings, not that he's not blessing you, he constantly wants to give them to us, but we block them.
Hold on, Bill. Go. I love where you're going. I want you to elaborate on that.
You know, like sometimes, like most people, unfortunately, go to him at the end when stuff is already like totally messed up. When if you would have went to him in the beginning, like, yo, God, how should I do this? How should I make this happen? Then you still could have bumps, but you would have been okay because you're holding on to that rod, that staff, that thing that he says he's going to be, so you can get better. And even though I grew up that way, when my mom died, when I was, in my teens, then my grandmother died, I actually kind of rebelled against him for a while, even though he was still allowing me to get these blessings, right? And we don't look at a lot of things where me and you was on tour, man, constantly for a while. But in my early days, I probably would have been homeless if I didn't have tour after tour after tour that God was just blessing me through Al Heyman. Like, Al Heyman is the Oz. A lot of people have never seen him or known him. But I owe a lot of my success to him, even knowing that I was a knucklehead, and he would tell me stuff like, yo, Phil, be more quiet or carry a bigger stick. And things that at that time I didn't know to pay attention to. And now in the latter part of my life, I genuinely love him because God taught me the messages that he was giving me through him in those days were going to provide during today's success. So rather than thinking that he was doing something negative and thinking bad about it, it conditioned me. And then, even though one thing we haven't talked about is that through these 20 years, I've dealt a lot with sickle cell, and you were there. Like you took me to the hospital in cities we had never been to. You sat in the waiting room and knew what was going on. But even then, God brought me through those things. Like he allowed me to have the relationships that were very necessary, that, make a difference, that you now have to speak on it, because you're doing a disservice to yourself if you don't acknowledge God, because you then are still blocking your blessings. You still letting them get in the way because you then can't speak on him. So you're doing a disservice to yourself, but you're not honoring him by not giving the true account of where this success came from. I have more than I could have dreamed for, and things are still happening for me. But I know now that if I have a bump, I'm good because he brought me this far. And you begin to learn also that these things you've heard throughout the years, whether you went to church or you had an aunt that went to church or uncle or whatever, that they're true. They really work. Like, not work because God is just a real being in the sense of like, he's not going to carry you anywhere and not take care of you, or he's not going to lead you to a place that you don't belong. And, you find those things. When I probably first got sentenced, I thought I didn't belong in prison. But the lessons that I learned while I was there, he allowed me to still understand that he wouldn't take me anywhere that he couldn't keep me. And I got a blessing out of most of my bumps. And now, literally, I'm most importantly happy and healthy. And those things are important because now I have to continue that. He's also, as you said, given me, that great seed and that daughter. And so now I have more to live for than myself.
That's right. That's right.
So, that's why I have to keep it, first and foremost. And come on, man. People are dreaming that they could have had as many conversations as we had with Dre, or that, like Puff gave me over all of those years of success. Oh, even the 3 years that I spent with LA at Def Jam were learning years, because I wasn't a record guy. I had that knowledge, input by Spartles and by LA that allowed me that when I left to at least leave there with gems. And I got some good gems. I know what I did, and I know what I delivered. So you have to just take those gems and be like, oh, okay, how I'm going to make this work for me and be more successful than I ever dreamed.
Well, I can tell you this, Phil. You did something that no guest has ever done. Before we hit the record button, you stopped the conversation and went into prayer. And it's interesting because there is never a time that I ever do an interview. There's never a time that I ever get in front of a camera that I don't stop, drop to my knees, and go in prayer. And although it caught me off guard that you did it, it was ever so familiar because I know you personally. And I just think, and I wanted to put that out there because this is not just something you're talking. This ain't just lip service for the conversation. This is who you are. And I love the fact that you are very bold about your relationship with God. But with that said, Phil, I can't thank you enough. This is one of those rare occasions, and obviously the lighting is not great on my side. The sun is setting, but it's one of those rare occasions that we get to have a conversation on camera. I don't think we've ever had a conversation on camera, and I don't remember seeing you on camera that often. So I thank you for blessing us, with your knowledge, with your wisdom, with your willingness to just open up and share and really pour as many gems into our audience as humanly possible. I thank you from the bottom of my soul, and you are a true power move maker. Thank you, Philly Rob.
Thank you, Prez. And another thing I learned from Pep, no one enough has been said. Thank you.
And let the church say,
amen.
There you go. Philly Rob, thanks for being here, my brother.
Make power moves, people. Make power moves.
What's up, guys? Thanks for sticking with me to the end of the video. Truly appreciate you. If you like anything you heard here today, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you know anybody that can benefit from this message, feel free to share. Peace and love.